in the box of interviews with a very special guest. Reporting from Toronto, the sculptor Ruth Abernethy, creator of the portrait of Glenn Gould in bronze, which is located in front of Glenn Gould Studio CBC in Toronto, and that this year celebrates the 20th anniversary. We warmly welcome to Ruth Abernethy. Hello.
Thank you, greetings from Canada.
How are you?
I'm well. It's fascinating to come against this beautiful anniversary and really absorb 20 years. My goodness.
We met in Toronto last year during the filming of the documentary Nice to Meet You, Glenn, where you told us many details of how the sculpture dedicated to Glenn Gould was born. How do you feel today for this extraordinary 20th anniversary?
It's an important 20 years for me, so a huge personal milestone. My sons were 2 years old and 4 years old when I made Glenn, and now they are both engaged to be married. So in a personal way, it's huge. And I think watching Glenn develop an audience and become an icon for Toronto is a parallel story and fascinating.
But what do you remember in particular about the 1999 presentation of the sculpture to the public?
It was a gift giving. There was a sense when you have the perfect gift for someone and you can hardly wait for them to see it. I mean, I can be my own harshest critic, and I knew that I had done a portrait that I would be pleased with. We'd had sessions with a select group of foundation members. I knew that Friends of Gould's felt that it was the portrait, and there was a lovely sense of anticipation and excitement about sharing it. I mean, this was Glenn, notoriously hidden away from the public and his audience, now being shared with the public and his audience. A fabulous sense of gift giving.
Well, the sculpture of Glenn Gould is a truly unique work. I can remember when I sat next to Glenn on the bench and I had the feeling that he can talk to me at any moment. And a question that intrigued me a lot is how if the sculpture, since it's exposed to the elements, needs some special maintenance.
That's the beauty of bronze, that it needs very little. It is not a demanding metal, which of course is why it's used for commemorative works, statuary. It's primarily copper, about 90% copper. So in that respect, it is easily worked by hand, that's part of it. But no, an annual wash down with soap and water and a bit of wax is all that anyone ever advises. And truthfully, most of my works, including Glenn, don't get that. They're loved by many hands and they have very shiny parts on them now, but no, maintenance of bronze is not complex.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of pictures on the web and Instagram that people make pictures with this amazing sculpture, and we can all admire the splendid sculpture, but not only that, every 3 years the Glenn Gould Foundation assigns the Glenn Gould Prize that we could define the Nobel Prize of the Art. The famous statuette is designed and sculpted by you, and I had the honor to hold in it, and I can tell you that I was tempted to take it away. The prize was awarded also among the others to Leonard Cohen, Philip Glass, Yo-Yo Ma, and the last year went to Jesse Norman, well, at the beginning of this year. We are curious to know how every 3 years you work on these unique pieces, which are then the Glenn Gould Prize, and I would like to ask you also if you have a favorite Glenn Gould Prize artist.
In actual fact, I didn't skirt the issue, but what the figurine now is quite different than what had been awarded for the first Glenn Gould prizes. The prize itself being comprised of a cash and other gifts, and my small walking Glenn I called the Glenn Gould Award, just because it is part of the larger prize. I worked that on my lap from memory of one of the photographs taken by Bill Hanstein and at the request, and then the shadow base was added because it was much more succinct than the first stone base. There is a mold made of it, of course, so that it can be repeated. But of course, molds change and break down over time, so it's up to me to do the fine tuning every time it's made and make sure that it is consistent with prior gifts. And I do love it. I have to say, with the best pieces just arrive.
Well, I would love also to ask you, what does Glenn represent in your life and as an artist? Is there anything in him that you find yourself in?
Yes, actually. Glenn is one of a number of musicians and artists that I have sculpted. He was the first, I think. I studied piano, didn't get as far as my grade 9 conservatory, but at that point it only makes me more in awe of what Glenn Gould actually represents. Anyone can learn the notes on a piano, but that's where he existed in such another plane that it really just makes me a more humble audience, I think. But I would offer that in trying to create something that is not apparent to everyone, you inevitably create a dislocation, a bit of space between yourself and other people. And then, oddly enough, that is balanced by the fact that when you create something true, like Glenn's perfect phrasing on some element of music, and people are stopped in their tracks because it's not just familiar, it's true. I put Gould's features there. People knew what he looked like. It's beyond familiar. If you overcome that dislocation from other people that your talent sets you up to create, when you make something that is true, and that's the point at which it connects again with everyone else. And I think that's inevitable. I have an awful lot of solitude in the studio, and I would never claim I do make no claim to being, in the world of Glenn Gould. That to me seems ridiculous. But I think there are patterns of creation that demand separation and then are realigned with the sharing of what you create. And I think that is a pattern that is striking and true in itself for anyone who does creative work.
Ruth, it's a pleasure to listen to you and to have you here live streaming today for celebrating the 3rd edition of Happy Birthday Mr.Gould, for celebrate, of course, the birthday of the great Glenn Gould. Would you like to say something to our audience that's following us live broadcast today?
Oh, congratulations. It has been such a pleasure to join a host of people who have lived in the shadow and in the legacy of Glenn Gould. I'm honored and I celebrate with all of you. Enjoy every note.
Thanks a lot, dear Ruth. We are following you on the social media. Of course, happy birthday to Mr. Gould. Many thanks to the sculptor Ruth Abernethy for this wonderful interview, and we congratulate to you for your amazing work and for this gift that you made to the humanity, the wonderful sculpture portrait of Glenn Gould. And today we celebrate the birthday of the great Glenn Gould. Thank you, Ruth Abernethy.
My pleasure.